Greetings. Welcome to the Asana Kitchen podcast. I'm David Garrigues. And before we get started, just want to let you know I'm excited for my upcoming summer online course on the primary series. So that meets July 8th to August 6th on Saturdays and Sundays for 2 hours each day. And you can do it live or with a recording. And we're going to go into the awesomeness of the primary series and kind of help make that practice, that formidable series more accessible to you and really go into it. So hope you can join on that. You can find out more information on my website. And okay, so for today's topic, we have Dristi, which is one of the principal techniques, and basically the word in its most kind of simple definition is focused gaze, right? And there's kind of 9 classic drishtis in Ashtanga yoga that we use in the asanas, and so where are we going to focus our gaze in our pose? And so just a summary of those 9 drishtis, it's the middle of the thumb. Yeah, so like when you look up past your, look up in triangle pose, and then the middle of the eyebrows, like when you go into upward facing dog, the tip of the nose, so it's kind of down the nose, like in a forward bend, then the hand, so like say when you're doing Warrior 2, Virabhadrasana. And then there's Parsva Dristi, and that's the left and right side actually counts as 2. That's how you get 9 drishtis. And so that's like in a twist, like Marichyasana C. You gaze to the right or to the left, depending on which side you're on. And then the above or up is a drishti, like reaching your arms up overhead. And then Nabhi Chakra, or the magical circle, navel circle gaze, which is like downward dog, say. And then finally the feet. Okay, and so to me, there's a very deep study of the physical aspect of drishti, and then there's a much more kind of symbolic or psychic play out, and that extends all the way to your entire vision of yoga and what you're attempting to see or experience or know through doing yoga. So we'll start with the physical, and so bless our hearts, Ashtangis, I find that we invariably, it's interesting because we take on these very challenging aspects of practice, like drishti. It's a very serious kind of meditation technique. And many styles of yoga don't really bother with focusing on where your eyes are, what you're doing with your eyes. And so that's very noble and important and awesome because in Ashtanga we don't dilute the technology, right? But what we tend to do, see, there's a kind of shadow aspect of undervaluing or not fully appreciating the degree of difficulty of the technique, or considering all of the scope of it and what it's really getting at. And so we can kind of, what I call is like literalize drishti or reduce it down to where do I look? And then just fix on that, and that's the end of it. And there's certain problems with that on every level, and especially, not especially, but starting with the physical level. And that's what I'm going to spend a little bit of time on with you, because see, part of undervaluing or not really understanding the degree of difficulty is it really boils down to positioning your head in an asana. Okay, so this is much more challenging than it sounds. And in fact, to to me, the head is it's the funniest thing. I joke about it, actually, because, right, the cerebral cortex, which is the evolved brain, and the mind of the human being is the prize, is the highest thing, in existence. And yet, from a very just straight ahead somatic level, like in the body, the head is the least smart, you can say, the least kind of clued into where to be in space, right? So your feet and your legs and your pelvis and spine and your arms, they're all kind of easier to sort out than your head. And so this is partly why it doesn't work to just say, well, in triangle pose, I look up at my top hand there, or in the side angle stretch, when I lunge and I take that arm over on the diagonal, I look up at the palm center, right? And so what often happens when we try to do that is that it distorts the head position terribly. And so, to me, then you have to not literalize the drishti in a way. Or one thing that or actually though, I want to, before I go into like how to integrate your head with the rest of your body, and then come up with a kind of appropriate or suitable gazing point, I do want to say that it's amazing how important your eyes are in the formulation of your posture. And because what you're looking for is you're looking for what I call perceptual accuracy. Okay, so more than doing an advanced version of a pose, or the kind of final version, you actually just want to perceive your body in space accurately, right? And this means the relationship between your parts. Okay, so you're aware of the angles and the lines of your legs, arms, spinal column, and then the line of your pelvis, torso, head. And your eyes are a very important helper in perceiving. And in fact, they are the principal perceiving sense, right? Like, here's a couple of amazing facts about the eyes. So number one, it's said that as much as 85% of the sensory information that comes into your body is visual. Okay, so you have your five senses, right? And your hearing, your taste, your smell, and your feeling, and your sight. And 85% of it is it's your eyes taking in the information and helping you perceive reality. Wow. Okay, so the eyes are super important for giving you information about where you are in space. Okay, and then another thing is that they say that as much as 1/3 of the brain activity at any given time is happening around processing visual information. So up to 1/3 of your brain's activity is tied up with processing visual information. And again, this is so amazing because it just shows you how principal your eyes are in the process of concentration and perception, and this translates into positioning and like really getting to know where your body is in space when you do your poses. And this is also what I'm talking about in terms of the asana, the looking place that's stated by Ashtanga for each pose is what I call the advanced looking place, or the advanced gaze. And it's because to really do it well, like even the most simple gazes, like looking up past your thumbs when you reach your arm overhead, or looking up at your hand in triangle pose, or any of the drishtis. To do it with a head position that's integrated with the rest of your body is really challenging. And this is why I suggest you open up more of an exploration with drishti before settling on this final looking place that's given to you in the standard Ashtanga kind of rollout. And so I recommend 3 drishtis that you experiment with in every pose, no matter what the stated drishti is. Okay, and they're very standard. So one is just looking forward, like you do when you do samastitihi, right? You level your chin and the gaze is internal, but it's also out towards the horizon. Okay, so you keep a level head when you do triangle pose, or reach your arms up, or any pose at all, or like even a back bend. Okay, and then research the whole position of your everything, and the legs, arms, pelvis, torso, and finally the head, and then the relationship between all those, and like gather more information about your body through these alternative drishtis. And then the other drishti is to look down, like cast your eyes down, and like Jalandhara Bandha, like do Jalandhara Bandha in any pose. Okay, and that is, in some ways, that's the best drishti that you can use, or at least you really want to include this because you can actually see your body when you look down. And like we said, that 85% of that sensory information is coming into your body through your eyes. And so the moment you look at your body, you've got a very important advantage for positioning, okay, and knowing where you are and where you want to be, and making adjustments, okay. And then the third one is looking up. All right, so you've got, so it's just very basic, right? You just experiment every pose with looking up, looking forward, looking down, and then really extract the most out of this very important sense organ and your eyes and your seeing. Okay, and along with that is to take into account this beautiful idea that your eyeballs are round. Okay, like that in itself is fascinating, and so it means that you look round, right? That the process of seeing has a circular aspect or a spiral aspect that's so important for doing poses. And one small example is casting your gaze around to the side when you do a twist, right? And it's like creating, like your eyes are leading the rotation of your spine in a circular kind of corkscrewing action. And it's easy to not do that with the eyes. It's just kind of look to the side and be done with it, rather than casting your gaze circularly around to the side as part of the motion of rotating your spine from the base up the column, up to the crown of the head. And so this is something I recommend. And it also kind of hints to that, to me, when working with your eyeballs, you actually, in order to integrate the whole thing, you can do this thing where you pretend that the seeing originates from the base of your spine rather than from the other end at the terminus, right? So from your pelvic floor, your tail of your spine up, yeah, so it's an amazing process to think of the process of seeing, yeah, starting at the base of your spine, like way down there, and then so seeing bubbles up the length of your spine and comes up through your head and then out through your eyes, right? And because your mission is to use your gazing to integrate your head with the rest of your positioning, okay? And then also, there's a certain kinesthetic awareness you're looking for that, so that your idea of kind of seeing or gazing, it's including more of your peripheral vision, and then it even extends beyond that to a kind of almost an intuitive sense of the whole body. It's like you're seeing everything, the whole body in your mind's eye, okay? And this starts to hint at the more deeper aspects of what Drishti is about. And so, because it's interesting, so in fact, one definition of Drishti is seeing with the mind's eye, or the very first definition of Drishti is vision, okay? And then also the word kind of attitude or notion. So then it's not just a matter of looking at your hand and then you've got the drishti, right? It's more of a vision, like you have this vision of your body in the pose, and that vision accounts for every part of you. So, and like a geometrical form or a yantra that you're making, that and so yantra, it's a meditative device based on form, and classical mantras are actual pictures that are drawn that you study and meditate on, and they're very precise, have precise geometry made up of circles, triangles, squares, like mandalas, right? And so an asana is no different. It's a very precise geometrical form that you want to have a vision for when you do your pose, okay? And that's why I tell you that the drishti actually starts from the base of your spine and goes up, and because your kinesthetic awareness, your kinesthetic seeing takes into account the entire structure. And when you have that feeling of seeing emanating from your center, and then also that you have zillions of eyes all throughout your body, like your cells themselves are eyes that are seeing or contributing and giving you information about your pose. Okay, well then by the time you actually get to those eyeballs and where you look, you're going to have a much more integrated position. Okay, and it's just fascinating. Like I marvel at it still after decades of study and research, that how important and insightful the visual sense is. And I like connecting just this idea of drishti, of focused gazing, with your view, your notion, or even your opinion, your stance, right? Like that's what you're trying to get at, is like, what's your notion of this pose, and in an overall sense, and then configure that. And then it doesn't matter where your eyeballs look, right? You could have your eyes closed, you could look up, you can look down, and you've got the whole thing integrated, okay? And remember that your head is the hardest part to integrate. So fascinating that your eyes, they give you so much information, so much perceptual information, And yet, where they're located makes it really tough to integrate that part of the body. And so you got to play with it. Okay, and along those lines, then so that the notion or the vision, the word drishti, it also means intellect or intelligence or wisdom. Okay, and this goes for a somatic kind of bodily intelligence, bodily wisdom, right? That requires that you encompass a greater vision of the looking place or the gaze to get the most out of. And just everything I've been talking about, that your seeing emanates from your center and you're integrating the whole body as in an intelligent way, and including your head in the equation. Okay. But then that intelligence or that wisdom, obviously, in yoga, it extends beyond, or the asana, or the asana is the microcosm that translates into the macrocosm, so that like a skillful positioning and skillful actions in the asana is teaching you about your life, the stances you take in your relationships, and in your relationship with yourself and your significant others and your work, and then all of the actions that you perform throughout the day, that you're trying to see, continually kind of see yourself in action and integrate and have a right seeing or positive seeing, and use your yoga to develop more skill in the choices you make in your life pertaining to every particular. Okay, and so, and along those lines, it's interesting that in Buddhism, the idea of having a view, which is a definition of drishti, or an opinion, is actually a negative thing. Or mostly that views are wrong views, or entanglements, or afflictions, and so there's said to be in Buddhism up to 62 different wrong views or entanglements or afflictions, and some of the main ones are like attachment to pleasure, or so wrong desire, and going after the wrong things, and so wrong seeing, or having a wrong view of like what is actually going to give pleasure or go away from suffering, and then hostility, anger, and all these are part of the wrong view, that all of our kind of aggressions and frustrations and the anger and kind of being aggressive and violent and these things, this is all kind of headed in the wrong view, especially when not acknowledged or sorted through or processed or kind of really looked at carefully. Okay, and then pride, arrogance and pride and ego, these are things that are going to cloud your view or be a wrong view, and doubt and ignorance itself is a wrong view. But it's interesting because they also have this Buddhist, another aspect of the Buddhist idea of drishti is what they call the pancha drishti. And you can say that most of them are negative, but one is not. So there's the kind of, or actually two are somewhat neutral. Like the first one, embodiment view. It's kind of like just the fact of having a body and having eyes and having perception is one drishti or view. But then there's the holding extreme view. Okay, so this is very important in the asana practice and also playing out in your mental states, right? Is that you're always looking for the middle position. So it's not an extreme in any one direction. And partly drishti is to detect when you've gone to an extreme, okay? And then, and correct, all right? And then there's just the plain old wrong view, okay? And this is another thing with perceptual accuracy that we're talking about, is that that's the premium. That's what you're looking for, is you're trying to perceive accurately what's happening. And what's amazing is how often we have the wrong view and are very just gung-ho in thinking we have the right view, or just assuming that it's that, or somehow missing the fact that we're in the wrong view. Okay, and so you kind of have to take stock, and that's one of the reasons that I have you do these different head positions in your asana, because it's so easy to lose track of where your body is in space. But then the moment you look down, like in a Jalandhara Bandha and scan, you're like, oh, wow, okay, I see. Okay, and then there's a grasping at view. So again, it's the kind of, we get attached to things and don't notice. And in a way, then we're taking up this attitude of grasping or clinging or holding on to things that aren't serving us. Little things in the moment, or bigger things that we form whole habits, patterns around, and cause ourselves a lot of suffering. Okay, but then finally the fifth one is so awesome. It's a grasping at virtue and practice. Yeah, see? So this is like a beautiful thing, is that instead of grasping at negative things and negative attachments, or holding extreme views or wrong views, no, we're grasping for virtue in our asana, in our actions, and that we're just grasping to practice, just to practice, and to really let ourselves get in there and dig around and practice and experiment and research and try things. And and we're grasping onto that. That's the view we're taking, is that I'm practicing. And remember that it's for a different podcast entirely, but for me, the virtue, it's got the three prongs. See, I love the word virtue, but it does have these three prongs that you're grasping at. And that is the moral right, so alignment, or whatever the rightness is of something. And we tend to stop there and think that that's all that virtue is just being right, or good. And so the second aspect is usefulness or suitability, right? That something could be technically right, but wrong for you, or not suitable to the circumstances. And so there's got to be this flexibility and this kind of heads-up perception of like finding what's suitable to the circumstances. Okay, and that's just as important as something being right. And this is talking about alignment, making your yantra, your geometrical form, and shooting for the ideal. It's like you have to respect your body and find what is suitable as you shoot for the ideal. And then that corresponds to negotiating things with your partners or your work environment, or all over the place. There's rightness is juxtaposed with suitability. Okay, and that's hard to take because right can be so unambiguous. It's right or wrong. And then when you add suitability, then it's like some things will be right for some and wrong for others, and it gets a little gray and mucky, the idea of virtue. But the wise yogi is able to withstand that that grayness, because life is not black and white. It's a little bit messy. Okay, and then finally, beauty is this essential aspect, the sense of order and harmony, and beauty, just the appreciation of what the form that you are making, and taking into account the aesthetic aspect to it, how it sounds or feels, or what to you, like, developing your palate and consulting your sense of taste and style as a part of virtue, right? So ideally, virtue includes a certain rightness, a certain suitability, and then a certain beauty. And then in the opposite of those is a wrongness, an unsuitability, and an ugliness. Okay, and then what I love about yoga, though, is yoga always goes beyond, and so, because it's so awesome that in the Buddhist idea that all views are inferior to the place of no view, right? So that you're not trying to have any drishti. You're not trying to have a stance or an opinion or a notion. You're trying to transcend all of those things. And so it's kind of the idea that no view is the best view. And then they have this kind of comparison they do, which is saying that just as open space is immaterial and develops all beings, right? So all the form of the universe, all the beings, right? The tree beings, the mountain beings, the animal beings, the human beings, it's all developed from immaterial space. So from the void comes the 10,000 things. And this is true that the vigor of the bodhisattvas is not, and so bodhisattva, it's another word for sage or enlightened yogi or master. So that the vigor of the master is not being established in any dharma. So dharma means particular way of seeing, way of approaching, or particular kind of path or work. And then they also say that open space opens possibilities for creativity, and then being without a set view opens possibilities for creative expression for the human being. Okay, and so this is what I think is so interesting, is that you have this we back to this really familiar theme of vritti, right? So you've got all this activity going on in the body-mind complex, and yoga is to stop that activity, to go from vritti to nirvritti, right? And that's the same as kind of go from having all kinds of notions and views that cloud your perception, attachments and anger and frustrations and all this. You're trying to go transcend all of that and kind of stop it and not come from any set perspective. But you need the intermediary step of pravritti. So you don't just go from vritti to nirvritti. You go vritti to pravritti, nirvritti. And this is where that beautiful idea of is the attachment. So your one view is grasping for virtue and practice. You see, so at least by that intermediate step, you're not in a blatantly wrong view or an attachment or these things. But you're also looking to transcend even your notions of what could be right or beautiful versus wrong or ugly, and come to the kind of empty out so that you can really experience everything. Okay, and walking even further into the process, there's the famous quote from my teacher who said, Drishti is when a master of Drishti has this view: everywhere looking, only God seeing, right? And that's this kind of the Jain faith. What they think of as drishti is the application of right faith. Okay, and so you drive away wrong faith with the application of right faith. Because remember that yoga, in its very deepest essence, is trying to get you to wake up to the spiritual dimension of your life, and so this is it. This is it, is to see that yourself is not this temporal body-mind complex that we get so attached to and closely identified with, that there's this eternal self that is unborn, and it's the author. So it's a kind of, it's the thread that unifies the entirety of existence. Okay, and so we're trying to move out of our small little ego and selfish concerns and get to a place of solidarity with all of life. And the very deep and profound stance of a monk or a nun, that that when there is suffering in the world, everyone suffers. Okay, it's not because suffering is outside your body that you're not affected by it or somehow part of it, right? And so this is this is the ultimate drishti, is everywhere looking, only God seeing. So you don't see this mundane world that we're so steeped in. You see the hidden, sacred, unified dimension behind it all. And along those lines, in those sacred texts of Hatha Yoga, there's often lines, little phrases like the one that I'm kind of interspersed once in a while. Not too many, but they're in there. And it has to do with like the breath and the body and the mind, and involving mudra and gaze and whatnot. And so here's it says, when the yogi's breath and mind have dissolved into his inward focus, and while he is looking outward and below, and yet also not looking anywhere, this is the Shambhavi mudra. So it's describing this wonderful kind of esoteric, energetic lock called Shambhavi. And Shambhu, it means auspicious. And so it says that then this is the Shambhavi mudra, the state of Shambhu, which manifests as the highest reality, free from what is void and not void. Right? So free from that kind of transcendent place beyond all of the notions and the forms, but also within what is not void, within this world itself. So you're coming to this highest reality that's free from both. So anyway, there's some ideas about drishti for you, and I really encourage you, in summary, to explore all of those physical ideas that I spent a lot of time with earlier, and then go even deeper into this whole idea of the notion or the vision that you have of your pose. And so you're integrating your whole body through your drishti, and then you even transcend your notions and visions and kind of wake up to the spontaneous apprehension of the world as it is, knowing it to be sacred, and that so that everywhere looking, only God seeing. You have an experience of that. All right, so I part with you reminding you about my primary series course coming up. Really love to work with you July 8th to the August 6th on Saturdays and Sundays for 2 hours, digging into the primary series in depth in a lot of different cool ways that will enhance your practice, whether you do Ashtanga and already do the primary series, or whether you're doing Hatha Yoga and you can take from that primary series and really enhance your practice.